Hey, everybody. Welcome to Boss Ladies Connect. Guys, I am so excited. I'm really glad to have this conversation that we're about to embark on with Charisma. She is just a phenomenal woman, and she is going to be sharing all of the gems and the things that we need to know about trademarking. And so I'm excited to have you, Charisma. Welcome to Boss Ladies Connect.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tisha. I'm very happy to be here. This is actually my first podcast recorded. So for the invitation, I'm excited as well.
So I love that because the first one is always the one you remember. So that means that, when you start doing all the big things and all the other podcasts, I'll still be able to pull you back in because I was the first
Right.
one. So
Yes,
can you introduce yourself, please, and tell everyone about yourself and your business?
absolutely. So as you've already stated, my name is Charisma. I am married, have been for almost 5.5 years now. I'm blessed to have 4 sons, one of which is still in womb, due very soon. And as for work, I am a business attorney and I'm also an intellectual property attorney. So that's a little bit about me. Other things that I do outside of law, I'm an active member of my church. I'm a minister, and I really enjoy fashion and
Yes.
yeah, and I really, have a heart for those who are in transition as far as needing assistance and help with life, going from maybe a state of poverty to, a state where God intended for them to be.
Oh, I love it. And I'm a mom of 5.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. 4 of them are adults. So I'm only working with one right now. Um, but I know it must be extremely busy. So I'm so grateful that you have hopped on this call and you are 37 weeks pregnant right now.
38
Ooh,
weeks.
girl. Well, you look gorgeous.
Thank you. Yes, I appreciate that. So 38, but history for me, 38 weeks, most of my children have been, well, actually all of them. I have 3 that's out, but all of them have been late, 10 to 12 days late. Now I don't want that to happen this go round, but yeah.
Well, we'll be praying. We'll be praying because it is a hot summer and I had my daughter, actually, her birthday is September the 4th. So I was so ready. Okay. It's
Yes,
not even funny.
yes, second summer baby. So yes, I am ready to have him, but he can stay in for about another week and a half. I gotta get some stuff prepared.
Together. Definitely. I completely understand. So you are a business law attorney? Is that what you said? I was
Yes,
listening.
yes. So I do, help businesses with other things other than trademarks. My focus really is solidifying the legal framework of businesses. And obviously, trademarks, I like to look at it as a pillar of your business. So I do assist a lot of my clients with filing their trademark application.
Wow. So how did you get into this part of law? There's so many areas of law. How did you get into this? And yeah, tell us the story about how you ended up where you are now.
Well, I went to undergrad. I was in business school. So I've always had a passion for businesses. I've always felt like, I'm going to stick my nose in everyone's business and try to help you solution solve. And this is wrong. We could be doing this better. So I've always had that strategist part of me that I was very passionate about. Now I decided to go to law school. Actually, it was a bit random how I ended up in law school, but people always told me my whole life, like, you should be a lawyer, because I like to debate, I like to discuss, I like to, have these back and forth conversations. So even though it felt a little random, it was for sure, destiny for me to be there. So I always had a passion for business. So when I went in law school, I knew that I wanted to do something in that arena as far as being in business law. And like I said, I view trademarks and copyrights and your intellectual property protection as being very vital to the infrastructure of a business. So they kind of just went hand in hand for me.
Can you tell those of us that are listening that may not understand what intellectual um,
Property.
property is? Yes.
So intellectual property can encompass a lot. It can be from copyright protection, trademark protection, trade dress, which deals with like the design. That's something that you will also file at the trademark office. And then you also have patent law. Patent law, those are, you have patent designs, and then you have different aspects of filing for patents. I'm not a patent attorney, so I do not practice in that area. So I can't speak too much to that, but intellectual property could vary, with all three of those: copyrights, patents, trademark, trade dress, even trade secrets.
So I took a business law course when I was getting my business degree.
Okay.
And so I kind of am familiar a little bit with intellectual property, and I found like patenting really interesting. And I know that trademarking is important, right? But it's so interesting that we're having this podcast and this conversation because I just got finished talking to one of my friends who has been in business, I want to say like almost anywhere between 8 to 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And she just got a cease and assist letter.
Oh, a cease and desist letter. Oh,
Yes.
wow.
Yes. And so
Wow.
I'm like, oh my goodness. So it's like perfect timing that we're talking about this. Can you tell us a little bit about specifically like what a trademark is and why it's important for business owners to have that? And would that be the same? So it's for her. Well, let you tell us what it is, and then I'll know if it's the same thing that's going on with her.
A trademark can be a name, a symbol, a slogan, a phrase, or pretty much anything that can add to identify or advertise your particular business. So any of those could potentially be eligible to receive trademark protection when we're thinking about what is a trademark. As far as your friend receiving a cease and desist letter, I'm assuming that it was for trademark infringement. Um, that's something that I've dealt with before with my clients. I've had to send them out for my clients before. So it's a real thing. And although it's not a court order, it's the first step that most attorneys would legally advise for clients to take to give that other business owner the opportunity to cease and desist from being in operation. And then also, it saves both. And also it saves both parties money because obviously your first step is you don't want to go start filing in court. So if you could potentially work out something before you have to go to court, that's what most attorneys try to do before you jump right into, okay, let's go file and sue them and have the court send them, these papers and so on and so forth.
So it's kind of like if you've named your business, right? You've named your business, but you haven't trademarked that name, and then somebody else picks that name for their business and they trademark it, then the person who trademarked it can now send the cease and desist assist letter to the other person to stop using that name.
So yes, that's typically how it will work. Now, I always like to tell my clients it's a little bit of an investigative stage with that, even with the cease and desist letter, because you have what's called common law trademark rights, which is basically said at the moment that you open your business and start offering, your goods or services within commerce, you automatically get common law trademark rights within that geographic location. So you really have to look at it at a factor by factor base. It's not like a black and white issue. I can use for an example because it's, I know this helps listeners to kind of understand what I'm saying. Say for instance, if I open up my business actually I'll use my own company actually. I opened up High Tide Legal here in North Carolina in October. I would say around December of that same year, another High Tide law office, which is High Tide was the dominant portion of the name, opened up in California. I found my trademark after they had opened. So right now I'm in the process of, waiting for my trademark to get approved and registered, which that's a whole nother story that we can get into later on with some of the questions that we may go over. But saying that to say, once my trademark is approved and registered, I can't just go in and say, hey, stop, operating in California, because at that time I was only, serving clients here in North Carolina. So even though my common law trademark rights would supersede theirs as far as in North Carolina, it won't supersede theirs in California because it's limited to the geographic area that you're in. So, however, the benefit would be that I could prevent them from expanding. So say, for instance, if they have, aspirations to open up law offices all around California or all around, the US 50 states, I can prevent them from doing so because my trademark now, I would have superior rights in all 50 states, whether or not I have actually served any clients in those areas before, because it's federally registered.
Wow. So there's a lot involved. Just because you got something in the mail doesn't necessarily mean that you have to stop everything.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean that, because I've had clients that received a cease and desist letter, and after I reviewed it and looked at the facts, I realized that the person actually did not have a registered trademark. They had their trademark on the supplemental register. And that's a lot of things that people, a lot of people aren't aware. There are two registers. You have the principal register and you have the supplemental register. And this particular client received a cease and desist letter from someone whose trademark was on the supplemental register. So by it being on the supplemental register, it automatically says that your name was not considered distinctive enough to receive registration on the principal register, because it may have been, too merely descriptive. So right now you're in a waiting process. You have secured your spot in line, which is good. So in some cases, I do suggest that clients do go that route. However, your rights to enforce this particular trademark are not strong. So technically, we could argue, well, my client technically, we don't have to stop yet. We don't even know if your mark is going to actually ever end up on the principal register. Now, obviously, like I said, you definitely want to speak with an attorney before you, make that conclusion, because it depends. It depends how close they are to being able to make a strong argument that my mark should be on the principal register, because they could be very close. I could research the company and say, hey, it's a high likelihood that they're going to get approved and be on the principal register within the coming year. So you may want to start positioning yourself to rebrand.
So it seems like it's a lot involved with the process, which is why, you would hire an attorney to do that for you. But I guess my next question is, so when do you suggest that people trademark? Because does everything necessarily need to be trademarked? How do you kind of make that determination? And I know that there is quite a bit of expense to do that as well. So if you could kind of talk about those two things.
Okay, so I guess I can talk about first, when do you need to trademark? I always like to use examples, but I know I've heard of this particular brand, and she tells her own story, but for the purposes of this video, I'm gonna, keep it, anonymous. But it was a particular lady who she had opened a business, and it had grew to 6 figures. And, obviously she wasn't thinking about trademarking her brand. She was opening up a business. People liked it and it grew. Later on, like similar to your friend, she received a cease and desist letter. Like I said, I've received cease and desist letters, and I have also I've issued them out. Sometimes they will ask for you to send over, your accounting records and what profits that you made. And innocence is not a defense. So merely saying, oh, hey, I didn't know that you had a registered trademark, that's not a defense, because from a legal standpoint, if you have a registered trademark, it's almost kind of like, well, I'm not even gonna get into that because that can probably confuse, but from a legal standpoint, it's your job as a business owner to do your due diligence to make sure that name is available. So if you don't do your due diligence, then that's your fault. So innocence is not an excuse. So if from that example, obviously you would say, well, when do I trademark? I say trademarking is not something that you put a cherry on top of your business after you've reached this plateau of success. This is something that you include in the foundation of your business. So you need to be thinking about trademarking within the first year of your business. And I understand, a lot of business owners may say, well, I can't afford it. Well, and that's when I suggest, okay, let's at least meet and talk and see where your brand is, what your intentions are from your brand, and let's get together, a quote and a proposal so you can have an idea. Okay, this would be the investment for my business. This is the investment for my intellectual property portfolio. And then that way you can start, either one, take advantage. My particular firm, we offer 90-day payment plans, as well as we have a service where you can apply for a pay later option. But if those two options aren't something that you're able to do, then let's get a plan of action for you to start saving. That way you're not building this brand and then you find out, oh my goodness, someone else has a name that's similar to mine or the same, and you have to rebrand after you've put so much work into building it up. So I look at it something that should be in the foundation of building your company.
There's a lot of things that you said that was so that stood out to me. But one of the things was when you said innocence is not a defense. Like, that's not going to save you. That's not going to not require you to make whatever adjustments or changes. And I think that that's something that, especially as so many people are entrepreneurs now, like moving into the business space, and you get in and you're kind of like, you're learning as you go. But I feel like this is an expensive lesson to learn, because I know it's a little costly to get a trademark, and I'm even speaking to myself. So
yeah,
to get a trademark, but it's more expensive to rebrand, especially when you get to a certain level. And I feel like I know who you're talking about because I follow her, and I know the whole thing. And I'm sure it was a very expensive thing to rebrand everything,
Right.
And it's not the first time that I've heard it for businesses, for people brands that I follow. And so,
yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I even use my own example, my own testimony. When I first opened up my law firm, I was not focusing much on trademarks. I started focusing on that at about month 10, maybe 9 or 10 of being open, maybe sooner than that. But just saying that to say, I didn't even think about seeing if my own name was available when I picked my name. I felt, like I mentioned before, a woman of faith. I felt like this was the name that God gave me. And a lot of times, I work with a lot of people who are, of faith, and they feel like, well, God gave me this name. It has to be here. And yeah, I felt the same way. But right now I'm in a process of defending to get my own trademark for my own law firm, High Tide Legal, through. It has right now been denied because it was another high tide that was registered. We don't offer the same services, but that particular examiner felt that they could not coexist. Now, I disagree with them, which is why, even though I've been, denied and they've made a final decision on it, I'm appealing that decision. But to appeal that decision alone cost me $450 just to file the appeal papers. Now, I'm an attorney, so I can myself. But if you go try to get an attorney to appeal something for you, you're talking about you're double and tripling the cost of what it would have cost you if you would have figured out beforehand if the name was available and reached out to that particular company, and maybe you all could have reached some type of agreement, because I've done that as well for some of my clients. So waiting, it costs you more money. And I'm learning that from my own example. Have filed sooner, and in some instances it's a matter of days with some clients. Like, wow, this person filed on the 10th and we filed on the 19th, and now your trademark has been denied or refused because of that other trademark application that was submitted. So it's cheaper to do it beforehand than trying to do it later on once your business is successful.
Wow. I when you were talking about, people of faith, and starting businesses. And just even if you're not a person of faith, just I think not really understanding all that is required in structuring, because I know you help with that too, right? Structuring the business. And I could speak from my own experience. I was just like, oh, let me do this, file LLC, let me do this, let me do that, but not really having a really good structure or what is going to work best for me, my situation, and my business. And so I think it's so important. And like you said, things that people should consider at the foundation and kind of plan or budget or prepare for it as they're growing.
Yeah.
So
That's
can you
actually, I offer, a service for those new entrepreneurs. If you are, new and you feel like, I don't even know what to do, I'm just going to, Google it and figure it out. Yeah. On Google, and not saying that Google is all bad. Google is a starting point, but it's not a finishing place. It's a place where you can get, an idea, but you have to follow up to make sure that that information is actually accurate and correct and still up to date law, because it could potentially be something that may have been true in 2020, but has since changed in 2022. So that's what I like to, warn clients about. And even with, using LegalZoom can pair you with law firms, but LegalZoom is not a law firm in and of itself. So LegalZoom is more so like a filing agency. So if you go to LegalZoom to file your trademark, they're not necessarily doing a name search. They're just filling out the application based on what you've given them, and they're submitting it for you. So now you can pay additional money to have an attorney look at it. I don't know all the terms surrounding that, but a lot of times people just get confused online, and that's how entrepreneurs end up in those jams.
Yeah, definitely. And innocence is not a defense.
Exactly.
I am going to say that over and over. And then now, especially the thing I love about God is like, okay, you didn't know before, but now you know. So now you have a new responsibility to steward the information that you now have, right? So even in like the faith capacity, I think that once you're informed, it's not to just blindly keep moving forward without, doing the work to like God is giving you the information.
Mm-hmm.
It's told you.
Right.
So
It's so much information out there. Like, us talking is really just surface talk. And that a lot of times people will leave like a 60-minute presentation and think that they're ready to, handle, a level of expertise that has taken years for a person to get. So, and I think that's also a misunderstanding with, I'm a person that I will invest to work with a professional. That's me. I do believe that business owners should become acquainted with different aspects of your business. You should be acquainted with marketing, how it works. You should be acquainted with sales. But obviously, the person that has the grace and the gift and the anointing for that, they're going to think about stuff differently than you would ever look at it. So don't underestimate that and just think, oh, I can read an article and I can operate at the same level that they're operating at. And I think that that's something that business, I get it. We're trying to save money, but a lot of times it doesn't work because you don't have that gift.
And you are, I believe his name is Michael Hyatt. He has a book called Free to Focus. And one thing that he said, I was like, yes, 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 yes. The energy that you are investing and wasting and trying and learning the process or trying to figure it out and then actually doing the process and then correcting your mistakes along the way, that same energy you could be exerting in the thing that you're gifted to do, which actually brings you the money to pay for the things that you need to do. And so when he began to break it down like that, I was like, oh, well, that makes sense to pay someone. Like if I pay you a certain amount of money, but the thing that I do yields me a certain amount of money, then really let me look at it. It's profitable for me to do what I do and then just pay you to do what you do because I can pull in money, moving in that space.
Yeah, exactly.
So I wanted to really quickly ask you about what this trademark process looks like.
Okay.
I mean, I know I'm already like, I'm not trying to take nobody's video or like course about
All right.
trademarking. I've sat in on a couple of things and I already know that it's not something that I can really put my hands on. But just so people have an idea of what that process looks like, if you could share that.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, every attorney's process is different. So for my particular law firm, I like to first start with a discovery call. In this discovery call, I like to ask questions that hopefully we can get to digging and getting that entrepreneur business owner thinking, and also maybe uncovering some issues or blind spots that they may have not considered. This is very important for me because I think that with the influx of trademark attorneys, showing up online, I like to take a more holistic approach with businesses because for me, a trademark is only worth what your business, how well your business operates. So for me, yes, a trademark is extremely important. And like I said, it's part of those pillars, but we want to issue spot and uncover some blind spots. So my first thing is during that discovery call, even though you may be reaching out to me for a trademark, I'm going to ask questions that may uncover other issues than just, okay, do you have your trademark registered? So this is why with my particular process, I like to kind of couple that with a strategic session where we kind of speak to the trademark, but we also speak to other parts of your business. So that is one of the, aspects of my trademark process that I feel differentiate me from other trademark attorneys. So that's number one. So we start off with the discovery call and we're able to kind of discuss. The discovery call is short, but that way by the end, I can say, okay, these are some things that you said that I feel that you may need to address by doing X, Y, and Z plus your trademark. Then I kind of set out to them the option and, if you decide to move forward, this is what our plan of action would be. First, obviously we will get on your trademark application. So with your trademark application, say for instance, if you come to me as a new client, the first thing we're going to do is do what's called a knockout search. That knockout search will tell me if there are any other names that are registered or pending that we should be concerned about. That way, before we move forward to step two, you can decide, okay, do we need to change the name altogether? Maybe we need to add a distinctive term. What can we do to overcome this potential refusal that may occur if we move forward with it as is? So you get two of those. So if the first name is unavailable, then we're able to do another knockout search. And then we can speak, typically by the second one, we're good to go. But in the event that that one is not available, then we could do another knockout search for an additional fee. If the knockout search, nothing shows up, then we move forward with the comprehensive search. So the comprehensive search goes beyond just what's registered. That speaks to all 50 states, all LLCs. That speaks, from just a higher viewpoint. It also looks at social media. And from that comprehensive search, I'm able to kind of advise you, okay, this is what's going on beyond just what's registered. So that if there is another company, like in my situation I spoke about, where there's another high tide in California, it's something that should be uncovered in that comprehensive search. So I can make you aware of it and say, hey, this person may have common law trademark rights here. So you could potentially down the road run into, them not allowing you to come into their particular geographic area. So that will all be set out in a legal opinion. So once I issue that legal opinion to you, which would be a written legal opinion, then we can discuss it. If everything looks good to go, then obviously we move forward with the next step, which will be filing it. But if it isn't, then that's when we kind of have to go back to the drawing board and discuss. So in the event that everything is good to go, we move forward with filing that particular trademark. I can assist you. Well, I assist my clients with the whole process. However, it just depends on what type of client that, your brand. So you have some particular entrepreneurs or business owners who are thinking about launching things, but they haven't actually launched yet. So you can file a trademark for those intent to use brand names or slogans or symbols. You can file an intent to use application for that. So if you're one of those clients who you haven't launched yet, then we could file your application. In that event, we'll go ahead and file it. And then once it is approved, you'll receive what's called a notice of allowance. Then that's when we'll start speaking about, okay, when are you going to launch? You can only extend that time for a period of 3 years. So it would have to be within 3 years from the time you get that first notice of allowance letter. If you're that. Now, if you're a client where your product or your good or service is already in use in commerce, then your situation will look different. We would focus on filing your application. You will have to prove that you are actually using your particular trademark in commerce. So that will require us to get put together what's called a specimen, which could be your website. It could be a photo of the item. It could be a brochure. It could be an array of things, depending on what your particular good or service is. In some instances, like for artists or stage names or books, a lot of nuances can come up with that. So it depends on what it is, because some are, simpler than others. Then you have those trademark applications that can get a bit more taxing because it's based on what you're offering.
Okay.
But from start to finish, if you want to know, like, well, how long does it take? Once we actually register it, if you came in, decide, okay, I want to come in from start to finish, your trademark should actually, if everything goes smooth, it should be filed within a week. If everything goes, if you're responsive, if you have everything ready, we trademark application submitted within a week, which is good because the sooner the better. And that's when your trademark rights will reflect the day that you file that application. Now, when you actually receive your registration number, it would depend on if you launched yet. If you haven't, then obviously it's going to take longer. But if you have, then you would likely receive that within 12 to 14 months from the time that we actually register it. But your trademark right date will date back and reflect to the time that we filed it, which is paramount when you are trying to start enforcing your rights, because you're saying, hey, my trademark rights come from, January 2022, and you open your business in March. So it supersedes. So when you're thinking about the hierarchy and who's first, you want to make sure that the sooner you file it, the better.
Okay, so it takes about a year to get the final?
To get your registration number, which is, that's when you first file it, you have what's called a serial number. So that's where your application is connected to that. So to get your actual registration number, right now it's taking about 12 to 14 months if everything goes smoothly. And that means with, pretty much no office actions. And that's another aspect of the trademark process that could come up. And like I said, those applications that are a bit more taxing or have issues that we would identify in that legal opinion stage, I would let you know, hey, you may get a refusal for it being merely descriptive. You may get a refusal for a likelihood of confusion. This is something that you want to be, thinking about. Do you want to move or do you want to change your name? I have clients who say, well, most of my clients want to move forward because they're connected to that name. And okay, well, when the office action, which is basically the examining attorney, they issue out a letter saying, hey, the name has been refused for all of these reasons. If I feel that it's something that can be overcame, then I will type up a response, which is typically, a 6 to 10 page response. And that I set out, this is why I disagree with you. I set out the law, I set out cases, and I say this name should be approved. In some instances that has overcame a refusal, but in some instances I knew that, I don't have a strong argument here. I don't have a lot of teeth to my bite. So, it's like going to court. You have clients who say, I want to go to court. And the attorney says, excuse me, the attorney may say, oh, I don't think that you have a strong case. And they say, well, I still want to go.
Right.
And, you may or may not win. So that's the risk that we take. So I like to advise clients up front, hey, it's not looking favorable for you. So that
Right.
adamant, I want to move forward, then obviously we attempt it, but I let them know, okay. And it's been times where I was overly cautious and nothing happened. So, and that happens because,
Yeah.
I'm a human and, I'm looking at it from my perspective and I may be being overly cautious sometimes, which I like to be because I don't want my client to be disappointed.
So when you say the registration number, is that the R? Is that when you're able to get the R?
Right.
Okay. Okay.
So
That's
that's
what
when
I
you,
thought.
yeah.
Yeah. So I just have one more question for you, and then I would love for you to let everybody know like how they can get in touch with you. I'll also have your information in the show notes so they can click on that if they want to reach out. But my last question is, I think I saw recently, and guys, she also gives a lot of tips and snippets on Instagram. That you want to check her out and follow her there as well. But so one of those tips or snippets that you had on there, you were talking about social media and like trademarking that a little bit. Can you just like really briefly let us know? I think something new came up that most people didn't know that they were able to do. You can share that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you maybe talking about my most recent post that I posted about the copyright office.
Right.
So other common misconceptions, sometimes people get copyright and trademark confused. So copyright that protects your works. So a trademark is focusing on that brand and that source identifier for that product or good or service. So the post that I was talking about was not in reference to trademarking, but was talking about the copyright office. So I found this particularly, useful for those people who are bloggers or maybe you have a email that you sent out that's something that's a way that you basically can protect your intellectual property as well as your social media posts. You have influencers and a lot of times people invest a lot. They may have a copywriter who are writing up these posts for them, so you invest a lot, so you want to make sure that someone is not coming and copying and pasting the exact thing that you have said on your post. So the copyright office, with that said, the copyright office now has this application which are for short literary works. So that can be your social media posts, that can be your newsletter, that can be your blog. You can register these things on one application and you can do up to 50 of those short literary works and register it, which is one application fee. So that's very useful for those people who are influencers, or maybe you have like I said, a newsletter, or you write a blog. You can start protecting, that intellectual property and all of that hard work and the creative work that goes into developing, this information that a lot of people just consume for free. And then you have other, influencers who see what you're doing and see you being successful and having these brand deals and think that, oh, I could just do this too. Let me just copy and paste what she did, not realizing how much work has went into it. One of the things I do also want to highlight is that if you do not register that copyright, then you can't go to court and sue for infringement because you don't have that registration. So that's another reason why you want to make sure that you protect your intellectual property. Now, that's not the same for trademarks. That's not the same rule for trademarks, but in particularly for that copyright infringement, you want to make sure that you actually register your work and able to enforce your rights to protect it.
So I have a saying. So would this apply? I have a saying. It's when passion meets purpose, great things happen. Right. And then it says like Tisha talks. So would that be something that you can copyright, like, or no?
So is that like a slogan for your business?
Yeah, as a slogan. Like I try to put that after every like after I do my content and I say things, I'll say when passion meets purpose, great things happen. I have different ones, but like yeah. So would that
Well,
be or
slogan for your business, then that's when you will get over into trademarking it.
okay.
So they don't protect short phrases, but a trademark does. So long as it's acting as a source identifier. So like I said, a trademark can be a name, it can be a symbol, it can be a phrase, it can be anything pretty much that is acting as advertisement or a source identifier for your business.
Okay. See, now I learned something. So I gotta have you come back and talk about copywriting. So Definitely. So can you let everyone know how they can reach you and any new things that you may have going on?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you said, definitely want to follow me on Instagram. I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter as well, but I'm definitely more active as well as TikTok, but I'm definitely most active on Instagram. That's where I post a lot of my information, but I'm looking to get more active on those other platforms. But on all of those platforms, I have the same handle, which is at High Tide Legal. So you could definitely follow and connect with me there. And in those within my profile, you can reach out to request a complimentary consultation, and we can speak. So that's the first way to get connected with me. As far as new things coming up, I'm getting ready to start open up like a subscription type service. I'm still in the process of getting the name for it and figuring all of that out. But if you join my email list, you would definitely get all of that information. And I also have a quick PDF that if you want to download too, it's called 5 Things That You Cannot Trademark. And that's also another, first stepping stone for you to kind of get an idea of how to pick your business name.
Well, thank you, Charisma. It has been a pleasure having you. You've given so much insightful information, and I'm definitely going to circle back around so we can talk about copywriting. I thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tisha. Like I said, this is my first podcast. So now I'm ready to go, I guess.
Well, guys, thank you guys for listening. As always, we want to make sure that you are doing life well and doing your business well. We'll talk to you next time.